Over the last 6 months, I've analyzed over 200 scenes from the students in our scene writing workshops. And what I found is that if writers fix just this one thing, they can write way more engaging and compelling sentences that keeps the reader turning pages. So in this video, I'm going to share this one simple trick to unboring your sentences. Plus, we're going to walk through several different exercises where you can put this into practice right now. So let's take a look. First, I want to look at some examples. So take a look at this sentence. He was thinking negatively. Now, what do you know about what's going on? Is it good? Is it bad? Now, you may think, oh, it's bad because he's thinking negatively, but that's not necessarily always the case. Sometimes it's good to think negatively. If somebody's coming at you with a knife, you might be thinking negatively about what's going on, and that is the appropriate response. So the problem here is we don't actually know much about who the person is, if thinking negatively is good or bad, given the context. We don't know anything. So now let's change the sentence, and I'm actually going to show you a sentence from a famous book, Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. His brain was treacherously negative. Now what do we know about this sentence? Well, we know the negative thing is bad because it's treacherous, right? So it's treacherously negative. And it's not just that he was thinking negative, it's his brain was treacherously negative. And his brain has this aspect of almost a biological nature to it where he couldn't help it. So just changing a few words gets it so much more information about what's going on. Let's look at another example. Words given to a child, whether intentionally or unintentionally, stay in their memory and can affect them later. Now again, is this a good or a bad thing? On one hand, if the words given to the child are a bad thing, well, then that's a bad thing. But if the words given to them are good and loving, then that sticks with them too. So again, it's just this kind of bland sentence. It's maybe something you would find in a dictionary or on Wikipedia. But now let's change it up. And this is the sentence from The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. The words with which a child's heart is poisoned through malice or through ignorance remain branded in his memory, and sooner or later they burn his soul. So once again, here we go. Just changing a few words gives us so much more information about what the author thinks. Obviously, the author thinks negatively about this. We see words like poisoned, malice, branded, burn. These words give so much more information to us as the reader about what the author thinks about what's going on. Let's look at one more example. All his meals were quick and large. They were meals with a lot of food. Again, I'm not going to keep belaboring this. There's not a lot of information there. All we know is the meals were eaten and they were big. Well, here's the line from Burmese Days by George Orwell. All his meals were swift, passionate, and enormous. They were not meals so much as orgies, debauches of curry and rice. So once again, we get so much more information because the author, George Orwell, picked really descriptive words about what's going on. So what we take away from this, how we unboring our sentences, is that your writing should have an opinion. As the reader, when I read your writing, I should know what you think about what's going on. Not because you directly tell me, but because of the word choice that you have. So let's do a quick exercise together. So I'm going to tell you something that objectively happened. So this is a thing that happened to me. A person cut me off in traffic. Now, what do I think about that person? Now, you may have an assumption based on your past and being cut off in traffic, but all you really know right now is that a person cut me off in traffic. So let's say I go home and I want to tell my wife about what happened, and I'm just going to replace those first two words, a person. And in the first way I tell the story, I start with some asshole. But then the second way I tell the story is this poor old lady. Now, think about how the entire context of what happens changes depending on how I describe the person. Some asshole cut me off in traffic. This poor old lady cut me off in traffic. You as the reader are going to take that objective thing, somebody cut me off in traffic, and you're going to feel differently depending on the words I use to describe what happened. So what we call this at StoryGrid is valencing your language, of making sure that the words that you choose to put in your writing have an opinion and convey that to the reader and conveys as much information as possible to the reader. And there's 3 places to valence your language, and these are in order of importance. First, you want to valence your verbs. You want to make sure your verbs are good verbs that show the reader what's actually going on. Then the nouns, and finally the descriptors like adjectives and adverbs. So if you valence these words in your sentences, it's going to give your reader so much more information. It's going to be way more compelling, and it's going to get your point across to the reader without you directly having to tell them. So this applies to showing and telling as well. So let's do a couple exercises together. Let's look at a verb like walk. If you say the man walked down the street, I don't really know much about what's going on. I just know he's walking down the street. But what if instead I use the word strolled, or marched, or sauntered, or strutted, or prowled, or limped, or scampered down the street? So again, think about what you picture as a reader if I say the man marched down the street versus the man prowled down the street versus the man scampered down the street. Same amount of words, but a much better verb because that's giving me information about what's going on, and it's giving me you, the writer's opinion about what's going on. Let's take a look at another verb like killed. So instead of killed, we could say assassinated, executed, slaughtered, euthanized, annihilated, snuffed out. Now I want to just take 2 of these and compare them. If I say she assassinated the man versus she slaughtered the man, changing out one word, how much blood are you picturing in this scene between assassinating and slaughtered? What kind of weapon are you picturing based on this? Is it a silenced pistol or a bat or a machete? So think about how just changing the verb gives you more information as the reader, and it gives me your opinion as the writer about what happened. So those are 2 examples of verb. Let's take a look at a noun like dog. Instead of just dog, what about mutt or purebred or pit bull or stray or chihuahua? Again, changing one word gives me so much more information. If I say mutt, it gives me a completely different picture than if I say purebred, which gives me a completely different picture from if I say chihuahua. Another noun would be a book. We could say page turner, doorstop, tearjerker, mindbender, thriller. These are all different ways to say the same thing that gives completely different pictures and completely different information to the reader. This goes for adjectives and adverbs as well. We don't want to say something's just tall. We could say towering, lanky, statuesque, lofty, gangly. Again, imagine if I was describing a man this way, towering versus lanky versus statuesque. Just changing that one adjective gives us so much more information and lets us know what you mean when you write down these words. If we look at an adverb like quickly, we could say hastily, swiftly, abruptly, frantically, leisurely. Same thing, gives us a completely different picture. So this is what you need to be thinking as you're writing your sentences, is you have to understand what you, the writer, are actually trying to say, and then pick the right verbs, nouns, and descriptors that get that point across just by the words that you pick. So now I want you to give it a try. Down in the comments, I want you to rewrite this sentence. The man sat in the chair. So pause this video, think of a scenario in your head, and then write the same sentence valencing the verbs sat, the noun man and chair, and then any descriptors that might give me extra information. And then think through, what if it was a large man? How does the man feel about sitting in the chair? Is he afraid to be sitting in the chair? Is he relieved to be sitting in the chair? How can you show me that by picking your verbs, nouns, and descriptors? Was it a good or bad thing for him? Make sure you're looking at each of the individual words you're choosing and give me a clear picture. I'm going to read every single comment that you leave just to take a look at what you do. So leave it down in the comments. When you ask the question, how to unboring your sentences, the whole point is your writing should have an opinion. I should know what you, the writer, thinks about what's going on simply by the verbs, nouns, and descriptors you're choosing to put in your sentences. If you want to dig deeper into how to write really great sentences, I have a whole video where I show you how to pick great adverbs and adjectives for your writing. As we know, lots of writers talk bad about having adverbs in your writing, and then they put adverbs in their writing. And so how do you know when to put them in and when not to put them in? And I walk you through exactly how to do that. That video is going to pop up on your screen shortly. Now, if you're wondering who I am, my name is Tim Grahl. I'm the CEO of StoryGrid. I'm the author of The Threshing, Running Down a Dream, and Your First 1,000 Copies. My partner, Shawn Coyne, is the creator and founder of StoryGrid, and he's an editor and writer with over 30 years of experience. If you'd like to learn more about StoryGrid, go to storygrid.com. We have lots of great free resources there for you, and you can sign up for our newsletter where we send out all the latest and greatest stuff. If you learned something in this video, make sure to put a like on it, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell so you get notified of everything we come out with in the future. But as always, thanks for being a writer. Thanks for being a part of our community here at StoryGrid, and I'll see you next time.